Welcome to the first edition of Intermat's Fan Podcast Friday. This is the chance for you to steer the direction of the show. And with our first show, our first guest, you've probably seen him on Twitter. It's Jimmy Dutrow. He is the founder and guy behind Wrestling Shirt a Day in May. And Wrestling Shirt a Day in May is looming. It's on the horizon. So we're going to talk to Jimmy about everything related to that. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Harold. Super excited. Like you said, May is right around the corner. I know folks are buying shirts right and left to get ready for it. So I'm pumped.
And show us what you got. You got one that's very topical and important.
Yeah, definitely going with the Keep Stanford Wrestling shirt today, because when we started this, that was one of the reasons, was to try and promote for some of these programs that are schools that we're looking at dropping, trying to promote programs.
Yeah, and I've got some Wisconsin on today. So you just kind of touched on it a little bit, but I know you had reached out to me, Jason Bryant, Mason Beckman, Brian Hazard, and I don't even remember kind of the impetus of this all, how this got started.
Yep.
So take us behind the scenes on how this, came to fruition.
Sure. It was really probably the last week in April last year. And I'm a middle school principal. And so we were out of our building, and I had a little bit more time to think than I normally do, which can be a scary thing. But it was right around the time that ODU had announced that they were dropping wrestling. And with the pandemic looming, I was really afraid for more programs to drop. And so I kind of reached out to Brian Hazard first and said, I'm trying to think of something that we can do to try and promote college wrestling, try and kind of get on the radar of some of the athletic directors that there is a groundswell of support for college wrestling out there, and came up with this Wrestling Shirt a Day in May an idea, kind of pitched it to him, asked if he thought it was a worthy idea. And I kind of got the idea initially from Jason Bryant a couple of years ago. He wore a wrestling shirt every day for a year. And so Hazard was like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Reached out to you, reached out to Mason Beckman and Jason. I wanted to try and find folks that were prominent in the wrestling community, prominent on Twitter, because that was going to be the main way that we were going to advertise and kind of get that word out. And I really had no idea how it was going to go, if it would take off. And I was pleasantly surprised that as we got rolling, schools started getting involved, people all over Twitter started getting involved, and it has kind of continually grown from last May to here we are. And this morning I got a couple shirts from UNI from Coach Schwab's wife, because she was pumping out shirts to get ready for Wrestling Shirt Day in May. So it's just been it's been a fun ride, and it's been cool kind of getting to know some people through Twitter, kind of the wrestling Twitter world, and promoting programs.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on a little bit as well. I know myself, when you're starting a new venture, you never know how it's going to be received. And you said that yourself. And I have to say, this was much bigger than you imagined, and it reached a lot of people. So, you have to be excited about what, the finished product, or, how it all kind of took on a life of its own.
Absolutely. I think when the Dan Gable Museum, Lee Roper's wife, reached out, and they kind of jumped on board, sent a shirt. There were some other coaches that were sending me shirts, promoting it, starting to set up stores. I think that's when I kind of realized I had hit onto something. And we're wrestlers. The majority of the folks that are involved in this are former wrestlers, they're coaches, we're all competitive. And so then as it went in and we started talking about having a team race and all-American teams with the number of people that they got to do it, some folks from the Hawkeye Wrestling Club reached out and they started promoting it. And the next thing you know, every day there were 10, 15 Iowa Hawkeye shirts going out there. Virginia Tech jumped on board. Princeton had a big contingent of folks. And so it's been awesome. And we've kind of continued it. And every time I see something on Twitter with somebody selling shirts, whether it's an individual wrestler that's trying to, whether it's prepare for an Olympic run or prepare for U.S. nationals, or a team, trying to get that information out there because people want to support programs, and that's one way that they can do it.
Yeah, and kind of the whole reasoning behind it, what I loved was, you have some of these big blue blood programs everybody knows, but then you have some of these other programs, smaller D1 schools, maybe non-D1 schools that don't always get a lot of love. When we posted the picture and maybe tagged the AD or assistant AD or whoever it was, those schools really took pride in it. You got responses from the ADs, and I just thought that was really cool and fun seeing that they were enjoying it. And you being a principal, you can get a lot of negative feedback on social media if you do one thing wrong, but you don't always get somebody just reaching out to you for no reason saying, we love what you're doing, congratulations. So, from an administrator standpoint, that has to be, cool on your end, and then seeing it from them.
Absolutely. And that was another key component in this. It wasn't just wearing the shirt and tagging either myself or hashtag wrestling shirt a day in May, but reaching out to the athletic directors, reaching out to anybody, whether it's the athletic department, the athletic director, the president of the university, and just saying thank you. Thank you for supporting wrestling. Thank you for your support of the program, of the coaches. Because again, I wanted coaches to know that we're out there supporting them and pumping it up. And like you said, a lot of the programs that are not the blue blood programs, those are oftentimes the athletic directors or the presidents that are reaching back out. The Gardner Webb president, I know he was one of the first ones that I think he wore shirts for Gardner Webb Wrestling. And it's just awesome. And I think the more that we can show that we are supportive of their programs and that there is interest in these programs, the better chance we have of keeping these programs, which is really the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I agree. And so what does the shirt collection look like right now?
It's funny because I knew that question would be asked. So of course, what do you think I did today? I kind of pulled it out.
Yeah, took inventory.
Took some inventory. So I have got over 65 Division I programs, program shirts, 50 different programs. I think there are 3 new programs that are on their way, and then one program that I already have. Got a couple shirts from them coming. I've got 3 RTCs. Several, about 4 or 5 high school programs have sent shirts. I've got 2 individuals and then 7 non-D1 program shirts. And ultimately my goal is to make sure that I have every single D1 program. That's kind of my first goal. And then of course you start working into D2, D3, NAIA, women's programs. That's another aspect that will kind of pump up a little bit more this year. Some of the things I have in mind, we've got our top 8 programs that we did last year that get on the podium for Wrestling Shirt a Day in May, because they get, every time someone wears a shirt, tags Wrestling Shirt a Day in May, tags myself. I've got a Excel spreadsheet with all that, keeping track throughout the month. About every week I put out who's in the lead. And then this year we'll also have kind of a D2, D3 NAIA women's program, so we can keep track of all of them. And then individual wrestlers, so that showing some support and love to the wrestling community at all levels.
Yeah, I talked to my wife last night and told her I was talking to you and what we were talking about. And I said, remember last May when I wore, wrestling shirt every day? And she was like, that's kind of normal anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily have a real job like you. So the sweatpants and wrestling shirts are almost a regular thing anyways. But
Yeah.
so I understand you have some new wrinkles this year as far as additional things that you're doing with Wrestling Shirt a Day, May.
Yeah, so I know you guys over at Intermat started kind of looking at fantasy wrestling. And so every year I'm in a couple fantasy leagues, one that's a year-long league, one that is a couple that are just NCAA tournament ones. And so I was fortunate enough to do well in a couple of those. And so, again, wrestling kind of gave that to me. And so I want to put it back into wrestling. And so what I've decided to do for this year is for all of the programs who have donated shirts to this point for Wrestling Shirt a Day in May, there were, I want to say, 19 programs that donated shirts last year. There have been, I think, 5 programs so far this year. A couple more have said they're coming, who are donating shirts this year. I am going to take that money and make a donation to one of those programs. So really 2 programs. And then, last year I didn't really want to, we were in the middle or at the beginning of the pandemic. Folks were on hard times and I didn't want to kind of hit people up for donations. I did at the end, just kind of to wrap it up with, if you'd like to support your favorite program, send a donation. And so this year, hopefully folks are in a little bit better place. And if people do want to donate to a program, I will be doing a workout every day for one of the teams that sent a shirt, for any team that sent a shirt. And then if someone donates to a program, they just need to let me know what program they donated to, kind of what they donated, so I can keep a running tally. Or if they want to put into the general pot, that will be my donation. They can do that as well. PayPal, Venmo, send me the money. And then I will take all of the money that is raised and donate to 2 different programs. Because ultimately, again, the money talks. And it's been awesome to see a couple of these, again, non-blue blood programs. George Mason just raised over $100,000 in a day. Campbell raised over $100,000 in a day. And I know we're not going to raise that amount of money, but having donors helps. And so that's kind of the new wrinkle that I'm putting on for this year, is to try to raise a little bit of money for some of these programs that have supported Wrestling Shirt Day in May. And hopefully other programs as well, because I know some people will want to donate to their favorite program, and I'll be happy to do a workout for them. And in addition to that donation.
Awesome. So you had talked about, Dan Gable Museum and, President Gardner Webb, who are some other maybe notable people that you didn't expect to kind of jump on, that you saw participated last year, that kind of made you get you taken aback a little bit?
Sure. I think when the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, their president, kind of got on board and started sending stuff out, he actually sent me a Hawkeye Wrestling Club shirt. We reached out to a lot of folks, and I think, the kind of Daniel Cormier's, some of these bigger name wrestlers, to try and get some support. And that's something that, again, I will do this year. Garth Brooks, big Oklahoma State supporter. Mark Consuelos, now that he has a son heading out to Michigan, and Kelly Ripa. But try and get to some of these people who, again, have very large followings, to try and jump on board Tony Rotundo, who's amazing with his photography. He jumped on board. And then it was awesome to see kind of really, I call them the four horsemen, yourself, Mason, Jason Bryant, and Brian Hazard. Because we knew each other, but like, it's not like we were all best friends. I've known Hazard for a lot longer than the other folks. Mason Beckman, I did not have a relationship with at all. I just knew that he was big into wrestling and kind of had that following. And at the time, he was transitioning from George Mason. And so having you guys jump on board and kind of the wrestling media and social media jump on board, I think definitely helped get the word out. Lots of followers seeing it and then getting them involved. So it's been awesome.
And then do you have some funny stories about some behind the scenes stuff as far as, I don't know, trying to get shirts or people saying, hey, why aren't you wearing my program, or, whatever you have you.
So the interesting thing, given the time that everything happened, there were a lot of programs that kind of reached out and were like, hey, as soon as I can get back into my office, I'm going to send you a shirt.
Yeah.
And, the Moore brothers, both Cleveland State and Lock Haven, were both two of the first ones to kind of jump on board with that. And, you keep in touch through messaging on Twitter, and it'd be like, hey, it's coming. I promise you it's coming. And you're like, it's not coming. It's really not coming. And then like 3 months later, it's like August, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I got into my office for the first time today. Shirt's on its way. So that was pretty cool seeing folks kind of follow through. And then it was an interesting time because there were a lot of coaches that literally were not able to get onto their campus. I had parents reach out. Donna Schermeyer, whose son wrestles at Messiah. She was, again, one of the first ones, kind of loved what we were doing. And she said, as soon as the Messiah store opens up, a shirt is headed your way. And so it was kind of all different walks of life. I've got a principal that I work with out in Iowa. That's kind of like a mentor principal to me, who's a huge Iowa fan. And so when he saw it on Twitter, 3 days later, there was an Iowa wrestling shirt popped up in my mailbox. So, and then the latest one, my wife was out with our kids in the neighborhood the other day, and she had a Davidson wrestling shirt on. They had sent a couple shirts, one for me and one for her. And gentleman stops her and says, oh, did you go to Davidson? And she's like, no. She's like, my husband's a big college wrestling supporter, and he does this wrestling shirt a day in May challenge. And so schools sometimes will send him shirts, and if the shirt's not big enough for him, I'm the beneficiary. The guy goes, wait, hold on. That's your husband? Turns out he's a good friend of one of the wrestling coaches that I'm friends with in Northern Virginia that happens to live in my neighborhood. And so, again, you just don't know kind of the reach this has, that this random guy that lives in our neighborhood knows about wrestling shirt a day in May.
That's awesome. And I know I've had plenty of those kind of random interactions. I know when I was getting my first shot, I was wearing a Purdue shirt, and I guess they must have had a terrible loss in the NCAA basketball tournament. I don't pay attention to it at all. So a couple people were like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I was like, I don't know. What do you, and they're like, the basketball. And like, oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, there's a lot of those with all the different schools you're wearing. And, when you wear, like, for instance, a Davidson, I know that'll catch people's eye if they went there or they have somebody who went there.
Yeah, I'll really confuse people when I wear like my Ohio State wrestling shirt on one day at the gym, and the next day I'm wearing a Michigan wrestling shirt, and they're like, "Weren't you in an Ohio State shirt yesterday?"
Yeah,
those two shouldn't match.
Yep. One of the few people with both of those.
Yep.
All right. So that's kind of all that I have for you. Is there anything else, any topics that you wanted to hit on that we've left out or anything like that?
No, I'm just excited for any programs that see this. If you haven't sent a shirt yet, I'll be happy to add you to my list of folks to donate to if you send a shirt. Um, for those who are looking to buy shirts, follow me on Twitter at Jim Dutrow, and I anytime I see something, I'm pumping it out. And when team stores are going on, like when Mason Beckman will shoot me a message and say, here are the team stores that Rudis has going this week. I get that sent out so that we can do that and get some shirts to people. And I'm really looking forward to May. I think the more that this has grown, it's going to be huge. Last year, Iowa finished on top with a little over 100 entries, and I think we're going to blow that out of the water. You look at some of these programs and how many shirts that they're sending out, and I think it's going to be it's only the second year, but it's going to be the best year yet, and I'm excited to be a part of it and excited to have you guys a part of it, because I know you'll still be doing it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And again, Jim Dutrow on Twitter, is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yep. And if you can't remember that, just tag hashtag wrestling shirt a day in May. And every day I just put that in my search and add up everybody's totals. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And remember, it's coming up, Wrestling Shirt a Day in May 1st. Put the hashtag out there and let's see what you got. I like seeing the kind of, I don't want to say obscure ones, but some not as popular schools. I think that makes it fun. So everybody get at it. And thanks for joining us, Jim.
Thanks, Earl.